Kirachem av al banim richam Adonai al yireav. As a parent has compassion for children, so God has compassion for us. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are but dust. But Adonai's compassion is everlasting, and God's kindness to children's children endures, age after age, unchanging. We begin our service with the recitation of Psalms, our oldest liturgy, and in that way we link the life of Sandi Soffer with 3,000 years of Jewish tradition, the people Israel, and the eternity of God. Esainai el heharim me'ayin ya'avo ezri. Esainai el heharim me'ayin ya'avo ezri. The psalm begins with a question. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim ba'aretz. Al yitein lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha, Adonai yishmor tzeitcha uvoecha, me'ata v'ad olam. The psalmist's answer: the source of my help is the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. He will not let you falter. Your guardian does not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. He is at your right hand to protect you. The Lord, your keeper, gives shelter. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. The Lord will preserve your soul. He will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forever. Mizmor LeDavid, another of the Psalms of David. Adonai ro'i lo echsar bino tedeshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev. Yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begetz al mavet, lo iro ra ki ata imadi, Shiftecha umishantecha hem yanachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzararai dishanta v'Hashem l'roshi kosida vaya. Ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Those are the Hebrew words of the psalm we know so well from settings such as this. Psalm 23, we sometimes call it the shepherd psalm. Recite with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This week, we will conclude our readings from Torah and begin reading all over again with Breshit. That biblical book of beginnings is not only the book from which we learn about the origins of life, it is also the book from which we learn about the end of life. And there we read of the passing of the patriarchs and the matriarchs of our people, and we learn that when that happened, it was members of the family and those who were closest who came forward to speak words of eulogy and words of memory. And so in keeping with a tradition that is truly among the most ancient that we have, we're going to hear first from family and then from friends. Aaron will begin, and then we'll hear from Judy on behalf of all the sisters.
as I look out and I see how full we are in this room. It's comforting to know that my mother was able to be a part of so many people's lives. She walked in many different circles, but was grounded with solid, long-lasting friendships and relationships and a true interest in everybody that was around her. Mom was a woman that was full of pride. She was unwavering with any task or project at hand, including the strength she demonstrated in fighting her illness over the past 2 years. If she made up her mind, good luck trying to convince her otherwise. She had goals. She achieved her goals. She showed my sister Leia and I that better was always possible, and through her own example. My mother had a lot of interests as well as talents. She was very open to ideas and loved to try new things at least twice. She also encouraged and supported so many avenues and ventures for others in her life. I think this is also why she could relate to so many people. She took her profession very seriously and had a true passion in doing the job. Her patients received personal care that oftentimes went far above the expectations of her job, with the only reward being her satisfaction in knowing she performed to the very best of her ability, and she also helped someone else out at the same time. She really did make a difference in so many lives. And then came along her granddaughter, Maya. I knew my mother enjoyed being a mom, but being a grandmother filled a very special place in my mother's heart. She cared immensely for Maya. Maya also really loved her grandmother, and I believe Mom's impact gave Maya some lifelong memories, even at a young age. Watching my mom and Maya play with many of the same toys that Leia and I used to play with is something I will always remember. My mother and I were close, and I knew from a very early age that she would do anything for her children. That caring was easily returned by us when it was needed, and even when it wasn't. I cherished every moment I had with her. My sister and I were fortunate enough to have a mother like Mom and to get to spend the time that we did with her. She will always be in our thoughts, and I know that we are all in hers. Thank you.
Judy?
Last night, I was sitting with my mom and my sister, and we spent a lovely hour or so going back into our memories and rehashing high points of the Sandi we knew. What made Sandi so special to us, even as a child and later as a mother to two very special kids, and always as a friend to numerous other people? The three of us almost simultaneously started sharing memories of Sandi's cleverness and creativity. Karen started with, well, when I was in high school and I had an assignment that required creativity or art, I would go to Sandi and know that she would take care of it for me. And here's a nice story on how Sandi used her cleverness to help her two younger sisters. Undoubtedly with good intentions, our parents sent Sandi, Janet, and me to a 2-week Girl Scout camp. That happened once. And not only sleepover, but sleeping in tents with children we had never met and being forced to eat dinners that were totally foreign and very inedible to our palates. Sandi, behind the scenes, very swiftly came to the rescue. She went to the head counselor and explained that unfortunately we three could not eat the standard dinners there because we eat only kosher meat. That really wasn't the case, but it was creative and fast thinking that really saved our stomachs. As a young mother, only Sandi could have taken a small piece of wrapping paper like this big with a jungle scene printed on it and she recreated it in full scale and in full color on the wall of baby Aaron's bedroom. How absolutely magical that was. And for Leah, the dollhouse project, which most of you are probably familiar with, Sandi and Leah slowly planned each room of this house, hunting for and finding just the right pieces of tiny furniture, building, decorating, and creating a miniature world together. A real labor of love. And once she became a grandma, Sandi took her creativity and cleverness to new levels, sewing Maya's stunning mermaid and ladybug costumes. I always got the photos in Israel of all the details and then the pictures of Maya in the outfits. We were amazed at each idea, but also how exact the execution of it was, not to mention how wonderful little Maya looked in them. And as we talked last night, Dawn joined the discussion and added, and how about how Sandi helped her patients by purchasing simple, off-the-shelf pieces of equipment and creatively adapting each item to each patient, saving them money and helping them in very unique ways. We could go on, but let's add one more highlight of Sandi's personality, that no-fear attitude. Mom mentioned how Sandi, as a young cashier in one of the first warehouse clothing stores in Dayton, came up once against a big, tough bully type trying to pay for his merchandise with a stolen credit card. And what did Sandi do? She simply cut his credit card in half. And when he threatened her that she wouldn't make it home in good shape that night, Sandi pointed out a larger man who happened to be a friend of our father's and told him she wasn't afraid. She said, "That man over there is my uncle, and he'll watch out for me." No fear. Ultralights, parasailing, hot air balloons, and fighting that cancer in every way imaginable, without complaint, but with good humor, her stubbornness, and elegance till the very last minute. Sandi, you've given us endless examples to learn from, and wonderful memories that we will always cherish. Yehי zichronech baruch.
Now we'll hear from a series of friends who represent various aspects of Sandi's life. Megan Drake is going to talk about the work relationships, and there's a group that has been together for a long time, a group of friends who call themselves the Lucy Ladies. I'll let them explain that. Beth Fisher will speak on their behalf. And then there's the Novelettes, who are Sandi's book group, and David Ascalon is going to speak for them. I'll let you figure out how he ends up as a member of the Novelettes. Megan?
I called Sandi my muse of laughter. It's so surreal. That's what Sandi told me after she was diagnosed. How could someone with so much love, joy, and awe of life be forced to consider her own mortality by such a grim fact as brain cancer? Yes, it's surreal. It still is and will be for many years to come. I realize that I have to admit that Sandi is gone in body, but to me, her indefatigable spirit will remain a part of all of us who loved her for eternity, because love is eternal. I would have willingly traded places with her, and I still would. She deserved to remain alive, to see her children grow old, her grandbaby grow up, to live out her life with the man who adored her. Sadly, I don't have the power to bring her back, so I must accept the only thing I can do to honor her is to celebrate her life with all of you, the people whose lives she touched. Sandi was the most extraordinary friend I've ever been blessed to have. She saved me from feeling totally alone at one of the darkest times in my life. Emotionally, I was treading water, barely. And then I met Sandi, and she became my muse. When I was clinging to a life that was draining my soul, I suddenly found a savior standing at water's edge, holding a rope and tossing it to me with a joke and a smile. That was Sandi. When life was unbearable and a heartache constant companion, she taught me how to laugh when I stubbornly and consistently tripped on the cobblestones of my life. By empowering me to find the humor in life's misery, she gave me her greatest gift, the gift of laughter, and by doing that, she saved my soul. Metaphorically speaking, not only would Sandi give you the shirt off her back, she would pack a few extra to keep you safe. As an occupational therapist, Sandi always had kind words for those suffering from living too long in a body that they would no longer obey. She was there to offer her extraordinary style of compassion to the masses. So many times I had observed her interactions with patients, and what always shone through was her genuine respect for and admiration of a person and their unique history. She helped to restore their dignity by helping them increase their independence, and that's no small gift. And when her own body stopped working as she desired it to, she maintained her positive outlook, her sense of humor, and forged ahead, determined to keep on going. Sandi had the soul of an artist, the heart of a hero, the mind of a seeker, an abundance of love for the world, and a reverence for everything under God's creation. Daughter, sister, mama, grandma, these were just some of her roles. But her most prolific role, I believe, was friend. She lifted up all whom she loved with this simple act of caring, for them, about them, and always with respect. She took tragedy and turned it into joy through perseverance at the most trying of times. Sandi was full of grace and always willing to share it with anyone who came into her circle of being. We will miss her, each and every one of us, in our own ways certainly, but jointly we will remember her laughter. Sandi, the muse of laughter, we will see you again. You will be well, and you will be whole, and you will be entertaining the heavens with the light in your soul. But don't worry, I have no doubt she'll still beat everyone at gin rummy. See you soon, my friend.
Beth?
So, you might wonder who Lucy's ladies are. In 1992 through February 1994, our friend Susan Litwin was ill, and Sandi, Anne, Sherry, and I were actively involved in her care. We did not really know each other well, but helping Susan brought us together. Susan was the type of person who loved to make people laugh, but she could not tell a joke. She didn't really have to because her life was like an episode, more like a season's worth, of I Love Lucy, and she was Lucille Ball, hence the coming together of Lucy's ladies. Lucy's ladies have spent a lot of time together, and we're going to share just a few of our memories with you. Lucy's ladies would celebrate birthdays, holidays, life cycle events, and go to Shabbat services. Religion was important to Sandi, and we all enjoyed listening to her enthusiastic participation and beautiful singing voice. She was part of the TBS Players, performing in several of their shows. After synagogue, we would often go out for lunch. Sandi, being the decision maker of the group, would choose the most unique restaurants, the criteria being that it was usually ethnic, none of us had ever experienced it before, and we would probably not choose to again. One of us would usually take the driving responsibilities, as Sandi had developed her very own set of driving rules and regulations. Lucy's ladies have been known to celebrate various occasions with sleepovers. One year during Sukkot, Sandi invited us all to spend the night in her sukkah. We thought it was a fabulous idea, until we discovered that the temperature was going below freezing. Not to worry, Sandi had it covered. The sukkah was encased in heavy-duty plastic, wired for electricity, warmed by a space heater, and made comfortable by padded mats on the floor. Not exactly how it was envisioned by our ancestors. After moving to a new home and installing carpeting, Sandi invited us for a pajama party. When we arrived, she was not shy about asking us to take off our shoes so that we would not dirty her brand new carpet. In order to maintain her meticulous housekeeping and keep our feet warm, she presented each of us with a pair of beautiful slippers, which she had crafted from sanitary napkins. Excuse me, embellished with flowers and ribbons. As most of you know, Sandi had a great sense of humor and could tell a fabulous joke. Sandi's sense of humor extended to helping us deal with our differences. For example, one Mother's Day, we were having a picnic, and one of us had developed ringworm on her face. To make our friend more comfortable, Sandi drew ringworms on everyone's face with bright red lipstick and captured the moment with photos. Sandi was always our resident photographer and provided us with hard copies until she became technologically savvy. Sandi was a true Renaissance woman and was fiercely independent. You could always find her outside cleaning her pool, mowing her lawn, trimming her shrubs and trees on a 6-foot-high ladder, mulching and planting flowers. We often relied on Sandi's horticultural expertise to nurse our sick plants back to health. These interests went beyond her own home as she participated on the beautification committee at Temple Beth Shalom. Sandi was dedicated to her career as an occupational therapist and came up with the most creative solutions to assist her patients as well as her friends in need. It was not beyond her to show up at your front door with a commode or a walker in tow and the tennis balls to make it slide easier. Months before Halloween, Sandi would start planning the theme for her costume. By the time Halloween came, Sandi was ready as Minnie Mouse, Raggedy Ann, Dorothy with Toto, or the Upside Down Man, and she would win first prize at work almost every year. As recently as last year, she made a Little Mermaid costume for her granddaughter Maya. Sandi was truly a remarkable woman with extraordinary talents. Her greatest talent of all was being our devoted friend.
David?
So I'm not really representing the novelettes. I'm representing Ronit, who recently had some minor surgery and is unable to speak. So I'm going to do that for her. How do you say goodbye to a friend with so many years of memories? You simply remember all the great events you have shared with Sandi. Add it to a great big bowl and let everyone else tell their stories and tell them to the same bowl so that Aaron and Leah will get a little insight of her friendship with all of us. We all had our personal relationship with her. We all loved her for different reasons, and here are mine. She was a very independent, caring, giving, loving, and darn stubborn, and I think the word stubborn was used before. She insisted that things be done her way. When invited to her house for meals, I was not allowed to clean or put things away because it had to be just right. So I always just sat aside and watched her do it just right. We were in the Art and Beautification Committee in TBS when we first met. For the first time, when we went for the first time, and volunteered to go to New York City and purchase silver candlesticks. We drove together, but she hated New York City. It was too noisy, too busy. But after lunch, we both relaxed, never found the right candlesticks, but enjoyed each other, and that was the start of our friendship. We did girlfriend things from that time on. Nothing special, dinners, movies, day trips, plays. We laughed together, cried together. In 2002, Sandi joined our book club of 9 women, the Novelettes. She became the secretary and kept notes on all of our choices, opinions, and scores. We would meet once a month at someone's house who would pick a book and prepare a meal for everyone. Sandi introduced us to so many unfamiliar dishes that were terrific. And as much as she did not want to clean up after and as much as she did not want us to clean up after the meals, it was 9 against 1. She lost. We cleaned it, and it was just right. You, Sandi, were the 10th to join our book club. We will never have another 10 to join us. You are number 10 to all of us. 6 years ago, Don came into her life. Those were 6 of her happiest years. And not only did Don become the love of her life, but also resulted in our gaining a wonderful friend. Aaron and Leah, you were blessed with a great mom. But in the last 2 years, you proved to us all Sandi was blessed with 2 amazing kids. We're not only here to mourn Sandi's passing, but also to celebrate her life.
Well, I also am speaking for the Novelettes. And you might hear a few of the same themes that were presented by other people, so that's really Sandi. In 2002, a few friends got together and started a book club. We meet about once a month at someone's home to discuss a book, have a meal, and enjoy each other's company. The 10 of us in the group are of different ages and backgrounds, but we like each other so much that we've gone to the theater, spent wonderful girl weekends at the shore, shared in each other's celebrations, and supported each other in hard times. As we reminisced yesterday about our friend Sandi, we began to recall the things that endeared her to us. Few of the adjectives that we found to describe her are smart, witty, funny, creative, caring, considerate, and a little compulsive. Little. For smart and witty, Sandi was the one who came up with the name for our group, the Novelettes. We even have T-shirts with the name on it. For funny, who hasn't received the huge volume of jokes Sandi would send by email, a little raunchy or otherwise? She had a collection of crazy Halloween costumes that she willingly lent out. When Sandy had foot surgery and used a scooter to get around, we all took a turn on it one weekend that we spent at the shore house, which luckily had an elevator, making it easy for Sandy to get around. We all remember playing board games and laughing all night. And here's the theme here. For creative, Sandy surprised us at a meeting at her house with slippers she had made out of beautifully decorated sanitary napkins. I didn't know she had done it before. We, of course, have photos of all of us posing in our slipper-clad feet. We all know how caring and considerate Sandy was. You could count on Sandy to say just the right thing to smooth things over, never hurting anyone's feelings. At our annual holiday party, our hostess would ask us to sign a new table runner under the heading, "I am thankful for." And Sandy would always be the one to think of the perfect thing to complete the sentence, and we would then all sign it, happy and pleased that Sandy could sum up our feelings. As for compulsive, we were fortunate to have Sandy as our book club reporter or recorder. She kept a record of every book we have ever read, nearly 100. Who hosted the meeting, how many people attended, and how we rated the book on a scale of 1 to 10. We know how much Sandy loved to travel to Israel, New Mexico, Arizona, and Portugal. She brought us gifts and sent many photos from her trips, but none were more important to her than those of her family, and especially of her beautiful granddaughter, Maya. We've decided to honor Sandy by participating in the National Brain Tumor Society Race for Hope in Philadelphia on Sunday, November the 4th. We will miss our friend, Sandy.
So let me see if I could take a bit of what we've heard and maybe a few more stories and put them into a context. The festival of Sukkot, which we are still marking, is designated Zman Simchatenu, the time of our joy. And it seems a sad irony that a family should be gathered in this place at this season. Still, the festival offers direction, for clearly there was much joy in Sandy's life. That's what we've heard from family, and I must say that's what I heard from family last night as well, as we sat around, Karen and David, Janet and Stan, Judy and Micha, along with Aaron and Leah and Hannah and her mom Shirley, and we talked, and Don, and there was much laughter, much more laughter than tears. We've heard from friends as well about the joy that she brought to your lives. Her Hebrew name is Simcha Gutke, which is joy and goodness. In the book of Samuel, there's a statement that's made by David about his great friend that he loved like a brother, Jonathan, in which he says, Kishmo Kenhu. He was true to his name. He was as was his name. If we put that into the feminine form, Kishma Kenhi. She was true to her name. Simcha Gutke. Simcha. Sandy found pleasure in such a wide range of activities, as we've heard. She was very artistic. She could sew, knit, paint, do tatting. I don't even know what that is. Calligraphy. Shirley taught all the girls to knit when they were kids, using pickup sticks to make clothes for their troll dolls. And even as a young child, Karen recalled that Sandy could be set to work on some task and would keep her busy for hours. And this was a real blessing to a mom who had younger children to watch over. And Sandy was very good at keeping herself occupied, except when she would occasionally sneak up by Karen and scare her witless, which was another one of her favorite pastimes. Her artistic talents found many outlets. There were the costumes for Aaron and Leah, nothing bought in the store, all handmade from scratch robots, bumblebees, dance costumes, Halloween costumes. She made costumes for herself, for co-workers, the Flintstones, the Wizard of Oz, theme costumes. We've heard of Maya's ladybug and mermaid costume. She created the patterns. She would cut them and sew them and paint them. She was creative. And probably the most creative costume of all, Aaron claims, is when she made him up as a toilet. A lot of simcha in that. Sandi, as we've heard, turned Aaron's room into a jungle scene with plants and animals on the wall, painting them all meticulously. He says he still wakes up with dreams about that room. And she also did calligraphy for bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah invitations, sign-in boards, three-dimensional centerpieces, all of which she made with her own hands, every detail. You know, a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah in our tradition is called a simcha, and she made it a simcha in a very real and tangible way. And as you described all of this, it was clear to me that what you were saying is those times became Zman Simchatenu for all of you. She enjoyed music, she played guitar, she could put out a couple of songs on the piano, she played clarinet growing up, and she could sing. And this also traces to her mom, who had organized the girls as a singing group, and they would travel around some of the towns of Ohio, and Shirley says they were very popular in a 30-mile radius. She put some of those musical skills to work at Beth El with a service that she ran, coming up constantly with creative tunes for Adon Olam, and enlisted her sister's help with all of that. She enjoyed puzzles. They were a source of pleasure for her. Jigsaw puzzles, Sudoku, crosswords, Scrabble, Bobble. She was very good with words, including an occasional dirty limerick, none of which anybody shared with me. Sandi was a collector. Thimbles, nesting dolls, spoons, coins, every movie stub ticket, Broadway show tickets. She did scrapbooking. She kept photo albums with carefully lettered commentary below the photos. All of this is about keeping memories. It's about remembering. Zman Simchatenu. Times of joy are meant to be remembered. That is a wonderful life lesson, especially for a time like today. And we know that in Jewish tradition, ein simcha ela ba'ochel. There's no such thing as a simcha without food. Actually, that is a teaching that traces directly to the Talmud. Sandi was good with food. She was a particularly good baker. Last night we recalled banana bread and pumpkin bars with cream cheese icing and dirt cake, which is made from crumbled Oreos and would come sometimes with a plant on top. Here too, Sandi was very creative. She made elaborate birthday cakes, Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy, Penguin. There was so much joy in your recalling all of this, Leah and Aaron. It was real simcha. She was a skilled gardener, as everybody knows. She had a green thumb. Her living room was full of plants. I was a little nervous about all of them behind me. She did landscaping. She grew vegetables and flowers. That's very much in keeping with this season of Sukkot, at which time you will remember her particularly. Leah said her mom had an adventurous spirit. She liked hiking, ballooning, gliders, roller coasters, and she pushed Don into all of these activities reluctantly, but he did come to enjoy them. And Aaron told of not too long ago a time when she went to Dorney Park with him, and every roller coaster imaginable was tried. Always ready to explore a new place or a new craft. She would get others involved. And of course, she was particularly supportive of anything that Leah and Aaron wanted to try. Leah talked about an interest in animation, and she found an animation class for her. For Aaron, it was pulling apart his guitars and repainting them in the garage, which became a workshop in which she participated as well. Even when Aaron showed an interest in fire, she found a way to indulge this interest. allowing him perhaps to burn leaves at a time when that was still permissible. Early this morning, I sat and spoke with my son Ben, who flew in and was up at that hour, and he told me of all of the hours that he spent at Aaron's house and with Sandi. Actually, I think she raised him as much as we did. And he spoke about a person of extraordinary principles who had rules and expectations for her children, but who would always be there to support them in any way. A person with whom you could sit and talk at the dinner table, a person who told jokes, a person who kept a meticulous home and yet allowed there to be a music studio in the basement, which Aaron and his friends, my children, made what they called music. It actually became music after a while. She would drive them when they needed carpooling. She was there to listen. She was there to share. And that's a source of lasting joy. She was good at that. She gave simcha. And since her name was Simcha, what she was really giving and what it was really about was giving herself. And in addition to all of these activities, the book club, the Lucy ladies, her children, her family, she worked full time. She was a highly respected occupational therapist. She trained for it with a degree at Indiana. She worked in Arizona when Jim was going to graduate school. She was well regarded even then, put on the state board of OT. She took some time off when Aaron and Leah were young, but by the time Leah was 5 or 6, she went back to work full time. It was a profession that suited her artistic nature, her interest in crafts, her capacity to work with her hands. She applied all of those skills. And as we've heard, if a patient couldn't afford a particular device, she would find a creative way either to get it or to make it. And she was particularly good with geriatric patients, which requires a lot of patience. She gave them a full measure of attention. She cared. And this too, her sisters and her mother say, goes back to the time when Sandi was young, and if there was a child in a class when she was a kid in school, a child who didn't have a friend or didn't have somebody to play with at a party, then Sandi would be the one to go over and engage that child. She looked out for others. She went out of her way for people, above and beyond what was required. And as a result, people gravitated to her. Simcha Gudke. She was good at making people feel better. And she brought joy and goodness in every setting. Pirkei Avot, in a very famous passage, poses a question. Ezehu Ashir, who's the truly wealthy person? And the answer, Hasameach B'chelko, the one who can be happy with his or her lot. Actually, what it means is to be satisfied with one's lot. Sandi found a great deal of satisfaction from her work. Now, it's obvious from all of these activities that she had to know how to multitask. And in addition to that, she needed only about 5 hours of sleep a night, which meant that she would occasionally pick up the phone and call Aaron or Hannah, and I imagine Leah as well, at all sorts of hours when they were already in bed because they had to get up early. But she would continue with activities on till 1 and 2 in the morning. And so she was able to get a lot of living into her 61 years. It's not by accident that this festival of Sukkot is designated Zman Simchatenu. It celebrates building, or it's celebrated by building. There is pleasure and joy that comes from doing things with our hands. But the Sukkot that we build are not merely about the physical construction. In fact, that must be temporary. Sukkot are really about building relationships. They are open to others. We are required to invite others in. They are places where we spend time simply sharing a meal with family or friends. Sandi was a builder. What she built were close, meaningful relationships with her sisters, with her children, with her grandchild, with her friends. She built a long and satisfying relationship with so many. One of her friends, Meryl, she made in 1964 at Camp Ramah, and she kept that friendship, and they saw each other regularly and took trips together. She made time. She made time for people, for the Lucy girls and the novelettes, for Megan. These are loving relationships that she fashioned. And in this last 6 years, no relationship has been more meaningful and important to her than that with Don. Of course, her closest relationships were with Leah and Aaron and Hannah and Maya. And all of you were there for her. Sandi, as we heard, would never give in to illness. That was not her nature. She was, as we've heard, stubborn, but really what she was is principled. You don't give up. You fight for life. And after surgery, she went back to work and back to driving. She had had surgery earlier in life as well, and did the same thing, perhaps too quickly. In fact, to keep her from driving back then, Jim took the spark plugs out of the car. That was the only way to do it. But this recent illness was much worse, and it took its toll, and eventually she couldn't work. And yet you were all there for her. Friends visited, brought meals, took her out. Don was the constant source of strength. Sisters, Mom, called and came. I remember when she was first diagnosed, coming to the hospital to visit, and the room was overflowing with family. And so it was again this past week, and I saw a lot of caring moments. But the most tender moments that I witnessed were watching you, Leah, help make her comfortable in her bed, and you, Aaron, feeding her and talking to her and encouraging her and being there. And in the end, it was the two of you who were with her, giving her the ability to finally let go when she could not go on. Sukkot, Zman Simchatenu, the time of building, is really about a journey, a 40-year journey through a wilderness during which our ancestors lived in Sukkot. Life, too, can be compared to a journey, and so this poem. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back, we pray, to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, death is a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. The life journey of Sandi Soffer, Simcha Gudke, has come to an end. May the memories of all the joys that you shared and the goodness that she did continue to be a source of direction for your own life's journeys in all the days and the years to come. We rise for a final prayer. אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת שמחה גודקה בת צבי הרש הכהן ושרה יוכבד שהלכה לעולמה, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה, אנא ברחמים הסתיריה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, והוא צרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Sandi Soffer has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and caring and loving deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. You are, Lord, her portion. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Be seated for a moment. Just want to note that after services at the cemetery, the family will be returning to 481 Carlton in Lindenwold. They will be ready to receive people around 5 o'clock. And we should also note that because of the Yom Tov that is fast approaching, there will be no services at the home.